Hi, I'm Finn. I have dyslexia and ADHD and decided to read Reddit stories live on stream. Have fun! Then everyone else in the group, including the DM and the girlfriend's PC player, expresses utter bewilderment. Wow, okay, let me take that again. Utter bewilderment. Expresses utter bewilderment in the no, I can't say this sentence. I was actually really tempted to just pre-record these and then upload the video rather than like live streaming them. I'm starting to see that maybe I should have done that. There we go. I think we're on. I think we're live. Sorry, everybody, but Bella wanted some scritches. So, first one up. When you accidentally kill your girl instead of kissing her. This one's lighthearted. A brief anecdote I would like to share. The year is 2007. The medium, if I remember correctly, text chat. The game is D&D 3.5 mid-level Gestalt. I don't know what mid-level Gestalt means. Somebody in the chat or in comments later on, please let me know about that. I don't actually know what that is. I actually know very little about 3.5 in general, actually. Other than that, it's very similar to Pathfinder. Two of the PCs in the party just so happened to be boyfriend and girlfriend in-game. I do not recall their races or classes, but the female PC was wearing either a mithril breastplate or full plate. The party reaches an inn. The players describe their PC settling down for the night. The player of the boyfriend PC says something to the effect of, the boyfriend PC takes the girlfriend PC by the waist, sets her down on the bed, removes her breastplate, and kills her. For a minute or so, there's only silence. Then, everyone else in the group, including the DM and the girlfriend's PC player, I'm not doing this again, expresses utter bewilderment in the out-of-character chat channel. After a few minutes of total bedlam, the boyfriend PC's player returns and says something akin to, "Oh, sorry, just got back. I meant to type kisses." The confusion is promptly cleared up. No one speaks of this incident again, but I still remember it, even with my logs of the channel lost. That is all. All right, that's pretty funny. Not gonna lie. This is a classic of play-by-post role players everywhere. Yeah. When you play with, especially when you play with dyslexic people in play-by-post, yeah, this is what happens. God forbid you do a play-by-post and then you get busy and then you come back and you're like, why are they freaking out? Let's actually read some of these comments. Let he who has spelled everything correctly during play-by-post text roleplay cast the first stone. Yeah, this is constant. Anybody who says they've never misspelled something in a play-by-post is lying to themselves and everyone around them.
Hold on for a second.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Oh my
what
gosh.
the fuck?
Oh my gosh. I'm scared.
Oh god! All right, let's get the next one. No, you can't use mental illness to justify having 2 character sheets. What do we think, chat? Is this going to be a justified statement, or is this going to be the statement of the problem player / DM? And in the comments, let me know. Put it ahead of time. Put in your predictions now, and then we'll get into it. So, ironically enough, this says it's long. Short story about a player who used to play at my wife's table in our home games. We kicked this player out of our group a couple months ago for behavior that we thought was just a misunderstanding of 5e's mechanics. Small math mistakes on his character sheet whenever we checked it, giving himself higher level abilities than he should because he thought multi-classing gets you the benefits of both classes, right? Etc. That eventually scaled up to a blatant full-on cheating, fudging gold amounts, giving himself equipment that he did not purchase, and attempting to lie to other party members after he failed to save on Zone of Truth. He was never at the same table as me, so aside from checking his sheet for my wife, I never really experienced his little cheats and advantages. What stood out to me most about his player wasn't what he did at the table, but when I tried to help him make a character for a different campaign. Is this before or after? All right, let's scroll up a little bit here. For context, my wife runs a small series of one-shots every so often to try out different systems, different group dynamics, and let her creativity flow by working on something other than her massive 6-year-long multi-party campaign. I fucking feel that. I feel that so much. This particular year, she wanted to try her hand at running Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because the flavor of this mini campaign was going to be very Far Cry-esque, and she wanted to have guns available. Have guns available in D&D? I get it, it's fine. Because I love building character sheets and optimizing, my wife often relies on me to help build and check over other players' character sheets. So there was one day after a game that I approached this player and asked him, hey, do you have an idea for your Far Cry character yet? If you want, I can start researching ideas for how to build them. So this player says, is there a way to have a split personality in Pathfinder 2e? What? I want my character to have a split personality, like where one of them has a certain set of abilities and the other has a different set. I thought, that's a little insensitive to people with actual that's a little insensitive to people with actual I'm dyslexic. I thought that's a little insensitive to people with actual dissociative identity disorder. But at this point, the Moon Knight TV show had just come out, and that sort of character idea was sort of in vogue. At the same time, though, this is his first time playing Pathfinder 2e, and I wanted to steer him towards something easy to play rather than overcomplicate with a complicated split personality mechanic that we'd have to essentially invent a whole cloth. Not insensitive, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. True, although he did... I wonder if the player has shown tendencies to not understand the proper, like, context for some of these things, right? Like, I know a lot of people were sort of, like, kind of happy with how Split handled DID, but also weren't happy with how they handled it in other circumstances, so we'll see. Let's see here. So I thought about it and told him the best way to build that sort of character would be a rogue. Rogues have a massive list of skills at first level and are also pretty good in combat. So you can pick out what skills and feats are associated with what personality and play it that way. Amazing idea. Truly a fantastic idea. Hell, if you were playing in D&D, I would actually recommend Grim Hollow has a subclass called the Barbarian Path of the Fractured. It is literally Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It is literally Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Absolutely fantastic subclass. I love it so much. Let's keep going.
No, like, I want the two personalities to have, like, different stats. Like, one is a pacifist that has really high intelligence and charisma and has a bunch of non-combat skills and abilities, and the other is a psychopath that's all geared towards combat.
This motherfucker wants to be a fucking skill monkey and a fighter. Yikes. That gave me pause, because what he'd essentially told me was that he wanted to play two separate characters and swap between them as he saw fit, depending on which would be stronger for that situation. Bingo. All right, let's scroll down a little bit. I said, I can't sign off on that. Okaying that would be giving you two player characters while everyone else only has one. We can sort of work your stats to where you can represent both on one character sheet, but you can't have two sets of abilities to pick from just because your character has DID. He seemed less interested in the character after I said that. The game ended up being delayed to the release of Starfinder 2, so ultimately it never mattered, but looking back at it, it put into context why he eventually ended up getting kicked from our group. At every turn, he seemed to be hyper concerned about his character having weaknesses, like a lower armor class and not doing much damage as character specialized to do damage. It seemed like he wanted his character to be able to do a little bit of everything, but became insecure when someone who specializes in any particular thing outclassed him, like the tank with their armor class or the cleric with his spellcasting. We found out later from another friend he played with that he had a history of blatant cheating in his home game, with the same warning signs and symptoms that Hey Tim, let's go ahead and read Reddit stories like you're not fucking dyslexic. With the same warning signs and symptoms that we increasingly notice in our games with him. It's not even optimizing or munchkining. Okay. That I could empathize with. It was just wanting to be better than other players in the party and going through illegal methods to do it. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's talk this one out. So this has nothing to do with the quote unquote mental illness. Let's read this. I think this situation is def cringe. The better idea, which I have told you about, is 2 separate classes tied to the same stats, and the DM has the choice of when the switch happens. Yes. So Austin and I actually talked about this very recently, which is why I summoned him. I think this kind of idea can absolutely work with the right methods, right? Being able to swap between one class and another, too much. I also think one of the things we discussed as well, if I remember correctly, was they'd probably have to be relatively simple classes and subclasses. Not too simple, but I don't want you switching between a druid and a wizard. Like, that's too much to keep track of. But like, if you're saying like, I want to swap between a Psy Warrior fighter and a Soul Knife rogue. Beautiful, wonderful, amazing. Absolutely incredible idea. I think we can work with that. There's just some little complications that we'd have to work out. I'd actually probably make a checklist of like, how can we handle these particular things? Ooh, starting to yawn a little bit. This guy, yeah, I mean, OP called it out right off the bat, which is, yeah, this guy wanted to be OP. This guy wanted to be strong in everything, depending on what the situation called for. He wanted to have the high stats for out of combat. He wanted to hit as hard as a fucking truck in combat. He wanted to tank all the shots. He wanted to be everything, and you just can't do that. You can't. But yeah, this guy clearly just wanted to, like, beyond power game. This was just wanted to be better than everybody else because everyone definitely thinks it's super hot to roll big numbers. Little tip for you guys. Your build does not matter if you want to impress others. Impress others by having a cool character that supports others and asks them questions and has very fun interactions with NPCs and roleplay in general. I have never, ever had someone fawn over my character because of their build. Every time they've fawned over my character, which is, I would assume, rare. I don't really know. I have low self-esteem about that kind of thing. Anyways, but no, whenever that happens, it's usually a praise of like, I like how you played the character, or I like the decision they made, or I like the way, you know, they're like addressing all this. In the Tuesday game, everyone's favorite player so far has been Liar, our buddy Jeff's character. Liar is the fan favorite already, is not that great of a build. Has some cool abilities, like has a really great support ability with the whole Mantle of Inspiration. That was fantastic. Aside from that, though, it was just the interactions. It was the role play. Get better at that. Don't worry about your build. Man, we have no fucking energy. Yay. No, wait. No, it's already.
All right, let's do this because we got a bunch of crap.
Okay.
Ah, damn it, I broke it.
Found myself in another failed play-by-post game again. Again with the play-by-posts! A sci-fi western game a la Cowboy Bebop and Firefly, taking place in a single sector of space that has a failed rebellion and barely leaving any usable planets, and most live either on stations, moons, or the better parts of the remain of the sector capital. The party would be freelancers, primarily bounty hunters, trying to make a living in this space sector. The main gimmick is that each of us has a dark secret that still haunts us. The party was going to be a one-armed tech that ran away from corporate megacorp, an ex-cop / war vet turned bounty hunter, an ex-smuggler trying to escape the mob, and me as an old surgeon who was part of the workers' rights movement that was violently put down by the megacorps. We all finalized character sheets, and on the day of the first post, I was taken to a private channel and told he didn't think I was a good fit. He found the public backstory to be too secretive for a game like this. I have put down that he was just known for being a very good back alley Russian doctor who loved to party, as I was basing him off some of the characters from Disco Elysium. He also told me that my character was overall vague, like he only saw one major connection to the setting itself, and saw that as lacking interest and respect for the game or the DM running it. The party and I tried asking more about the setting, as the setting doc was about 3 pages long, and most of it explained the war, but not much about, but not how much time has passed, who were the major players in the war, and if they were the same movers today. The factions were a sentence long, mostly this is the remaining settlers who are dirt poor, and this is what corporations look like. The setting document was indeed short and vague, and when anyone asked for a specific part of it, they were only told, it's in the setting document, use it. Oh, God, yep, nope, out, done. Immediately done. Sorry. Look, okay, already gonna go on a side tangent. If you treat your players like that, I've had one instance where I almost kind of sort of had to get into this. Not quite to that level, but I wrote a brief synopsis of a homebrew world that I was doing for a mini campaign. And unfortunately, much to my dismay, and I was legitimately annoyed by this, they are still my friends to this day. I have communicated with them. They have apologized. We've moved on. But they did not read any of it. And it was not that long. Unfortunately, it was very much not that long. I didn't really put a lot into it because I was actually letting it be a world that was built by the players. So a lot of it was done on the sides before the session 0, but on the sides after the session 0, but the base of the world was still there for them to learn about. But even then, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, okay. Like, I could see a worse DM being like, okay, you haven't read it? I'll wait until everybody's read it. What? Oh, you want to? No, you got to read the document first. No, fuck that. I just read it to them. It was pretty damn short. I was just like, hey, all right, let me read this to you. I'll do it in my sexy narration voice of welcome to the world of Averis or something like that. I don't know. As told by the Lux Donum. And yeah, that's all you really have to do. But if you're being told, go look in the document, I can't fucking stand that. I'm sorry, but I can't. Okay? It's just, unless it's a repeat thing, like, if it's a, like, dude, this is your 5th time you've asked something that's on page 1 of the document, that's a different thing. But if it's just, like, your first few questions and you're still throwing that kind of attitude, fuck that. All right, let's keep going. The one major link was to a gas giant mining corp, which only made up one sentence and was half of this doc. Wait, what? The one major link was to a gas giant mining corp, which only made up a sentence and a half of this doc. Okay, sorry, I'm dyslexic. Which was just the name of the industry. I had taken the time to thoroughly read the setting doc, even quoting from it while trying to ask questions. I dedicated a weekend before my finals to finishing the character and background. The DM's response, if you had asked them like that, I would have answered them, but it's too late for that now. In fact, it seems like that's a red flag as a player. Left me feeling underappreciated. I tried explaining to him that finals would be done by the game start, as it was in the morning, but he kept twisting it to show that I didn't really have time for the game. Seeing the writing on the wall, I just opted out of playing like he wanted me to. It's funny, though, that talking to the other players who remained, it sounded like that game isn't happening, as the ex-cop character was too cowboy and not enough space. The one-armed tech revealed too much of their background to be a usable character, and the smuggler was too specialized in piloting and wanted it to be a general skill everyone had on top of everyone being able to fight. TLDR, DM wants to have a sci-fi cowboy game, but me nor the other party members can make characters that fit into his barely baked setting and makes it into an us problem. And one cleaned up the post a little bit. Not enough, but it's okay. I understand. It's fine. Yikes. Fucking yikes. Okay, so fun little story tangent. I've actually, I was running a space-based D&D game so I actually have a book for running D&D in space. It's Dark Matter from Mage Hand Press. It is very, very good. Very, very fun. Highly recommend it for people. It has a lot of good shit in here, including some really cool stat blocks and feats, and the mechanics for the ships is downright incredible. Highly, highly, highly recommend. And I may or may not have been reading through some Noma ships. Don't mind me. You want your characters to be specialized. We had a pilot. That pilot got to do an amazing, and we still had other people who could pilot, but the main pilot, because he was specialized in piloting, everyone else had jobs on the ship, and then I gave them all these incredible moments to really shine. We had a robot guy who was like basically a warforged who like decided to integrate into the ship to bring online a cannon that wasn't even like online before. I had mechanics that they were going to go fix that, but he had a druid subclass that allowed him to turn into a cannon. He was like, hey, can I integrate into the ship? And I was like, yeah, do it. That sounds awesome. Make me this check. And he made it immediately. I was like, okay, cool. Here's the risk though. You know, this cannon is offline. It's damaged. It enhanced his spells. Basically, you could cast a spell from it and it would enhance it to be a ship level, which is like the whole thing in Dark Matter where like when you're fighting ship to ship, things from it is like you roll, it seems like really low, like you're rolling d4s and d6s, but in all reality, if any of those things hit you as an individual, you actually multiply it by 100. So obviously it's very dangerous. But I was like, yeah, you know, you can do that, but you're gonna be rolling essentially sort of like what was it? Matt Mercer's misfire score. If you roll below a certain number, you're gonna take some damage yourself and you're gonna lose that spell slot. And it was great. He got some really dope moments. We had some great stuff from the engineers. We had some great stuff from the general gunners. We eventually like got to a point where they flew into this giant space worm monster that eats ships, and they cut through it in the middle while firing from the inside to get the final like, how do you want to do this, while we were playing Kickstart My Heart, and it was dope as all hell. You want those specialties in those space games. I mean, you want specialties in games in general, but especially in space-based games. And yet, this guy is having a kerfuffle about it. I wouldn't mind being in some sort of sci-fi campaign or sci-fi TTRPG, but I'll eat my shoes before I enjoy ship-to-ship combat. So, funnily enough, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run a one-shot for you, man. Dark Matter has really, really good ship-to-ship combat. It is incredible and like really makes every single player shine in spectacular ways. So I'm going to run a one-shot for you, man. Maybe we'll do it on stream one day. But for now, yeah. Fuck this DM. Honestly. Like, you fought too hard. You fought way too hard to try and stay this game. This guy was immediately just a total dick.
I like the duck. It's cute.
It explodes, by the way.
The rabbit?
No, the duck.
Oh. No,
I-
no, it chases you and tries to bite you.
What about the giant fat white rabbit?
Oh! Ah! So, now that we have the context, let's go back over to here. DM kills game post session 0 for asking all the wrong questions. So I somehow ended up at a gaming hub ran by the guy who was the DM of this story. And you didn't learn your lesson? I initially avoided DM text games, but after a while I saw how well he was running them now, and even the server decided to give them another shot. Oh, okay. All right, okay. We'll see how this works out. Well, that game burned down to the ground before long. That makes sense. The game's core concept was Final Fantasy slash Ghibli style, lighthearted post-apocalypse. We were all students of the Magi. I'm gonna say Maggie, the Maggie Academy of the nation built on the ruins of the former great multi-directional empire. That was a sentence and a half, maybe 2.5 sentences. I'm not sure. Holy shit. But a Final Fantasy Ghibli style sounds great. I love that. May or may not be planning something like that. We players were entering our senior year and needed to complete a senior adventure. It was like a team-based senior seminar. We, the students, were assigned into groups and went out into the world to find a relic from the former empire. We would be given hints of what relics and artifacts are out there, but will most likely be fought over by other senior adventure parties. The DM briefly explained this will be a more open exploration and puzzle-based than combat, and required us to take the young hindrance and arcane background. There were 3 players for this cat. What? I'm confused by the writing here. Okay. There are 3 players for this cat. A demon-blooded... Oh, wait, what? Huh? A demon-blooded catfolk warlock type trying to find more about her born right to control it better. Okay. Also the demon fanfic book club president. Okay, I kind of love that. I really, really like that. That's awesome. Oh, that is the music loud for you guys? That was loud as hell in my ears. I am a foreign exchange student from a reptilian Mayan-inspired empire. He was trying to see if the ruins had anything to do with their gods disappearing and seeing how the mammals do their shamanism. I like that. That's pretty cool. And finally, Jester, a bardic theater kid who happens to be a changeling-like shapeshifter. No one, not even the party, knew he wasn't human. Wow. A changeling who actually kept a secret that they were a changeling. Every changeling I've ever known in D&D has revealed it almost immediately. This sounds like a great setup for a game that wasn't meant to be. The DM hated the strange questions and comments we were making. Some notable examples. 1. Freaking out that the jester asking for the weight we were using, pounds or kilograms, as he was European. The unhelpful DM said, "It's just weight. Like, God, they're the same thing." Are Matt or Tobias awake? I literally play with multiple different Europeans. This would drive them insane. My Cyberpunk DM, who needs to get proper sleep and better not be in my fucking chat, is Polish. So this would probably drive him up a wall. Anyways, when Cat... Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. There were 3 players for this. Cat... Oh, okay. All right. Just bad punctuations. When Cat asked for clearance on whether we would get a base or cart, the DM said, "I said this was a journey game and that she should know how to read." 1, when we pointed out that the info was under 100 posts and would be helpful to pin it, the DM did, but was needlessly passive-aggressive about pinning going forward. I know some DMs like this. 2, made vague threats about bad things will happen if we get carts, wagons, or more pack animals. DM even said no about airships, dragons, or other mystic means of transportation/cargo, despite not even asking. This motherfucker has had another campaign. I would have left after number 2. Yeah. That's... That, yeah. I mean, yeah. This is... Yikes. I would have probably, at this stage, this is where I, as a player, would have communicated, like, "Hey, man, you're being real aggressive. I just want to make sure that, like, we're all good here." We'll see. I'm more, like I said, I'm a conflict resolution guy. 3, had an issue about us tying character backgrounds together as, "I gave you enough backstory already." This is where I'm out. The DM left passive-aggressive comments when we finalized how we know each other. Despite being told that it didn't matter, forbade us from having the same homeroom, having favorite professors that he didn't make, which he never got around to making. No practice jokes, as no realistic high school would have or tolerate them. Practice jokes? Practice jokes. I don't get it. Never meet in or even be in detention. not the head of any official school-approved clubs. Well, you got rid of the cat girl. She was the president of the Demon Fanfic Book Club. What the fuck? And 6, no significant roles in the student body government, plays, or even other student performances. This is the first time I'm going to shame somebody for this. Dude, do you even watch anime? Like, this is Anime 101. You're doing a Final Fantasy Studio Ghibli style high school. If you're going for like this is more akin to Harry Potter, but a little bit more serious, say so. But as it sounds, Studio Ghibli gives me like, okay, I want to be like, Ghibli, I don't know. Studio Ghibli gives me more of like that feeling of, you know, classic anime, like high school tropes and all that. Like, I think the idea, I've always wanted to run or play in a Strixhaven campaign, just because I love the idea of being in a college or a school of any kind in D&D. If a player came to me and said, I want to be president of this club, dude, that's awesome. At the very least, if it's like, you know, a little bit like niche, you know, not like, I'm the student of the best wizards in the school club. If they said those exact words, I'd probably be like, okay, but the name is ironic because y'all suck. Something along those lines. But like, this DM is missing every single easy dub that they could have for running a school-based D&D campaign. So wow. All right, back to it. 4, oh my God, this guy still keeps going. Hated that we used any JRPG term as the game was Eastern themed, not a Japanime. I'm gonna say he's trying to say Japanime. Oh God. And no, we couldn't use anime character icons despite all the reference art being inspired by Final Fantasy Tactics and put through an AI art program. Oh, now I'm really out. Sorry, AI art gone. Goodbye. I'm outie. Goodbye. Pay some fucking artists. Stop using Eastern theme. He literally is saying it's Final Fantasy based. What do you mean? All right. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, honestly, the AI is really what gets me. I'm sorry, but even as a DM, look, find art, make sure you have the original artist so you can give them credit if anybody asks. Do that. I think that's perfectly fine. Unless it specifically says do not repost. Then, you know, obviously that. All right. 5. I asked him about the clarity of some of the fantasy critters and was told, there is a photo of them. What more do you want? So I know this is play by post, which adds limitations, right? As a DM, I love throwing in some random ass descriptions of an area, of a creature, of an environment, of a person, and really setting the stage. So I get that in a play by post, because you're not saying it and it's not off the cuff, you can be a little bit more tricky. But saying there's a photo of them and not getting into like the nitty-gritty. Wait, as a storyteller, are you kidding me? Hey, this little squirrel thing with a gem in its head looks really cool. Do they all have gems in their head? Why do they all have 2 tails? Is there anything like evolutionary thing? Are they magical based? Are they fae based? Bro, I would love to explain more about that. That sounds awesome to me. When a player character or player in general is asking questions, I want to tell them everything. I want to share world knowledge and tell them about my stupid little lore in my head. Or if there is none, make it up. Have some cool ass shit. It's so fun as a DM. This guy is dropping the ball on every single thing he could possibly drop it on. Oh God, I don't know how this person likes DMing. Honestly, this guy feels like he just likes the power and control, and then when people start fighting back against him, just dumps it because he realizes we won't have it for very long. All right, so in regards to there was a photo of them, what more do you want? When we clarified the questions to species, as some of them looked very hybridized, think lizard birds or bat wolves, he called us weird for focusing on that instead of things that matter to the game. God forbid I'm interested in the character and the background and the world building of your setting that DMs across the world would kill for the level of questions and interest these players are giving to this DM, and he is squandering it. Why? That's when the group dynamic switches from players playing with the DM to players playing against the DM. Yeah, player versus DM is where you gotta just cut it, dude. It's... Oh, fuck. As a DM as well, I get so nervous if I'm starting to quote unquote win as a DM, because I have played with, and I know my players have played with, DMs have a very like player versus DM, like almost a competition of like, oh, the DM's winning when I'm about to TBK the party. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there like, I don't want to TBK the party. I don't want any of you to die. I actually have a lot of story things that are coming into play soon. I don't want that to go away. I wrote like 3 pages just for this next chapter. Help! This is what turns people off to really it does. Like, this is so frustrating beyond belief. This is frustrating, but like, these players are showing interest, true interest in this world. The moment I have to fudge the rolls behind the screen because maybe I made 3 crits in a row is insane. So quick side tangent about that. So I have had moments where either A, I realized something. I actually had a moment very recently where a character was going to be one shot. And thank God I didn't even have to fudge this, but I remembered that an NPC that joined them, I had altered their stat block and they had silvery barbs, so I could like help them with that. Thank God I did that. D&D is such an RNG game. Not like normally just because the luck you need for a good set of human beings to seriously. But no, like my players know I think this is one of the things I really like about my DMing. I'm not saying I'm a perfect DM. I don't even think I'm that great of a DM, but I'm sure there's about to be a comment in the chat and I'm just going to ignore them. But I am cheering for them to win. As a DM, if you are not cheering for your players to win, I don't think you're being a very good DM. Unless the term is, hey guys, make a level 20 character. I'm going to try to kill them with CRs appropriate for their level. That can be a lot of fun as a DM. I'm sure that's more like a DM battle royale thing. I want to try to win against you. But in general, no. Like in a general campaign, you want to be cheering for your players. I root for them. Yep, there it goes. I root for them every time they get a crit, every time they deny one of my monsters' like abilities. I am so happy. I will feign like, oh my God, I can't believe you counterspelled their spell. I'm sitting there going, oh no, thank God you did that. That would have fucked you guys up. I love it when that happens. It's actually so fun for me. Now, I usually offset a little bit by making sure that I still give them challenges when they need to have challenges, and they still have to be put on the back foot so they feel that level of like appreciation and that satisfaction that they overcame a really, really strong opponent or a really difficult situation. That's still a lot of fun to me, but I want them to win. I don't want to kill them because I write a lot for their backstories and I actually include them in the main story. Even if it's a module, I write new shit in. So once again, really mad at this DM. Continuing. Let me see here. Some of us were taking or had abilities involving keywords and critters. Okay, so I'm imagining they were also asking for like druid and ranger stuff. Or summon animal, summon beast, conjure animal, maybe. It might have been a little while ago before it was adjusted. 6. When we asked what edges feats... Edges? What? Did they say what game's core concept? They don't say what they're actually utilizing. That's interesting. If anybody knows what edges means for the particular system they're using, please let me know. When we asked what edges, feats, would fit the character concept, or at least a more practical character, as 2 or 3 were new, just got complaints about strange questions and asked, "Are you all fucking autistic?" 1. We would all confirm that we all, surprisingly, are on the spectrum, even showing proof, which the DM would say everyone online said they are autistic. How does this DM even have players? Let's finish up the story. This one's depressing as all hell. So after a month of waiting on the DM, we get a message from the DM in the evening, a good old-fashioned Texan apology, complete with a bless your heart. Oh, should I read it like a Texan? As he puts it when pushed about the non-apology. He was in the worst mood for that month, but it doesn't excuse our behavior in asking the dumbest questions he had ever seen from this generation of gaming. Regardless of whether he was new to the game or not, he felt we were spending too much time fleshing out characters for a match, mainly with no real story. It was going to be primarily exploring and problem solving, so it was not the kind of game you needed to be that detailed. Reddest flag of all. Also, yeah, if you're telling me don't worry about your character's background, it doesn't matter that much, unless it's for a one-shot, which I get, but if it's for a campaign, no. That is officially one of my biggest red flags for DMs. If you like dismiss character backstories altogether, or say they're not important, or just don't introduce them at all, I hate that. I really do. I run a, here, we're gonna go into another side tangent here. I run a game on Thursdays. I'm running, it was Lost Mines of Phandelver into the Shattered Obelisk, and then that is actually going to transition into Vecna Eve of Ruin. All of it heavily homebrewed because I change stuff based on the characters. I adjust and add new things in so that the characters feel like they're not just along for a ride, but they're there for their journey. Everyone is the main character. Their parts of the story are coming up on their own ways. We literally have we have a Warforged who is from the fallen cities of Netheril. We have an Aasimar who seems to be some grandchild of a god from another world. We have a Soul Knife rogue who seems to have some level of connection to these psionic entities in Shattered Obelisk. We have all these really, really cool characters. But I've had to let some of them know, like, hey, your story is going to come in a little bit later, you know? I mean, obviously, you know, Shattered Obelisk has a lot of Underdark stuff, so now our Drow Paladin of Lolth is going to have some interesting aspects to that. He's one of my favorite characters, if I'm being completely honest, because he's playing a evil character perfectly, in the sense that he's evil, but really, really, really working with the party and actually really friendly to them, and sort of filling in that little bit of, like, the way I was raised is now being wholly interrupted and questioned by this world that I am now exploring, and it's a lot of fun. But I also had one player who I actually had to part ways with. I had to tell them, hey, I don't think you're going to be a good fit for this game, because they had told me that they didn't want their backstory explored at all. They didn't want me to touch on it. They didn't want me to, bring in any characters from their backstory or anything like that. To which at first I was okay with, but I expressed concern and eventually realized it was going to really, put a damper on it, along with a couple of other problems. There was definitely some problems with them in my game, unfortunately. Not something I'm going to get into today, but maybe one day I'll talk more about that. But it was not healthy by a lot of ways, and I, as a DM, don't like not focusing on the player characters' backstories. I love talking about their backstories and bringing stuff in. I love that moment where it's like, you see the white hair draped over their armor, blood-soaked sword sticking into the ground as they wipe stuff off their tabard. And as they turn to face you, thorns rode and braided through their almost pearlescent hair. they turn to look at you. Hello, brother. Like, that shit and seeing the players' reactions and stuff like that, Austin knows what I'm talking about. It's fucking fun. It's so fun to see their reactions and get the excitement and the happiness for my players. Fuck, okay, can you tell that I actually get really, really happy about, like, making my players happy? I don't know what it is. The smile is legitimately genuine. I get so excited about this shit. We also have another session on Thursday that I'm really excited for. But regardless, honestly, I really need a DM on this channel at some point. But yeah, so again, once again, this DM is just dropping the ball. Terrible DM in my opinion. All right, let's keep going. Let me see here. The DM said he would delete this and would give us time to copy info for how much work and effort he thought we all collectively put in, which translated to less than 30 minutes from the announcement. 30 minutes for all? Oh my god. The archive channels removed all the character planning and sheets and only left info of value. So the DM wrote, as the DM wrote for himself. Some of us were invited to his revamped dungeon diving version of the game with darker themes and combat heavy salutations. Maybe situations? I don't know. Were they using like voice to write this? I don't know. A game that you would have a detailed background in, despite telling us how tired he was earlier about games like that. It seemed like this guy is in a bit of a loop if the graveyard of games is a sign of something. TLDR, I ran into an old problem DM and gave him a second shot, who is going to run a Final Fantasy inspired coming of age wizard high school game. Freaks when we ask basic questions about the world, character dynamics, and anything related to actual public high school experience. Edit 1, not sure why the bullets turned into numbers, trying to reformat. Okay, that's why that was happening. Got it. This DM, I don't even know if I could really call them a DM, if I'm honest. The look of utter joy, the gasp of pure surprise, the silence of complete terror when the major plot about a character becomes clear is absolutely priceless. I have no idea why any DM would throw that away. Seriously! It's so amazing. Two people inspired me as a DM. I'm gonna get a little emotional here. The second person I'll talk about first. The second person was Brendan Lee Mulligan. Matt Mercer is a fantastic DM for Critical Role. Obviously, I look up to him a lot. But Brendan Lee Mulligan was the first one that made me realize during Calamity, oh, DMing can be really fun. The reactions that he's getting from his players, the way they're leaning in and getting so invested in these moments. I'm not saying Matt isn't great at that. There's something about Brendan being able to really just draw them in like that, and you can see how much fun he's having. It was just intoxicating to watch, and I immediately wanted to run a game like that, to the point where I'm actually running a Descent into Avernus game based in Exandria, where like El Terrell was actually the ruins of Schattengrad, which actually rose up because something activated and then they landed again and they renamed it as El Terrell. And it's a whole thing, but I honestly, I did it all so that eventually I can play Asmodeus. So this is gonna be a lot of fun, but he inspired a lot. But the person who inspired me first was actually my first DM when I first got back into D&D back in 2020. I played when D&D 5e first came out and played it for a while. Then I fell off for a while. But my best friend, his name is Josh, who's amazing. Loved that man. He unfortunately passed away, I think about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And he ran Curse of Strahd for us. We sucked as players. We really did. I made a Fire Genasi Artificer from Sharn in Eberron, right? Not a Curse of Strahd character. We had another character from Eberron who was like a ranger. Oh, what are the psionic people called from Eberron? But it was one of them. But they were like Fey touched or something like that. We had like just a little dwarf paladin. We had all these different characters that did not match this campaign. every single one of us felt like the main character for a good chunk of the entire campaign. And by the time it was all ending, we all felt like our stories had been wrapped and we were ready to go, like entering the final dungeons of Castle Ravenloft. We weren't going to be content, but our stories were finished if they were finished there. And if there was an epilogue to happen, then we would get the satisfaction of knowing what would happen there. I lost my words there, but I strive to be as good of a DM as he was. At the very least in that regard. He was amazing. I mean, he literally made Curse of Strahd. He homebrewed so much of it. We even joked often that, you know, he wasn't really writing Curse of Strahd. He sort of skimmed the summary and then went, okay, and then just made his own homebrew world with some of the names from the book. But he included all of our character backstories. He included some really, really cool stuff. Every time I do something like that for my players, I really do think of him. And I think about what he would have done in that situation. And I think about, honestly, how much he might be smiling if he got to see that. Yeah. So to see a DM like this squander such an amazing feeling, an amazing opportunity with players who are invested, which they really shouldn't be with this DM, but they are giving their investment and their time and their energy into really discussing and figuring out their characters for the world that he's hopefully been putting in time and effort into and in thoughts, and just squandered it. And that legitimately, like, that saddens me.
Doc.
Yo. Tell me about it.
There's two big
Yeah?
ones in that room.
Oh, dude, she fucking didn't.
What?
Seriously? What a fucking bitch.
He's gossiping.
Players waste 2 hours torturing an innocent NPC. This is going to be a smaller, less horrible story than most of what is posted on here, but I still wanted to tell it and speak about what I learned from it. Ooh, we get a lesson. Context. A local game store organizes TTRPG nights once a month. The DMs go up to a stand, explain what game they're planning to play, and then players volunteer to play in it. I went there a few times to try new games and meet other players. My first try DMing for this event, I present a Vampire the Masquerade story that I wrote to introduce players to the game with a one-shot. I don't like most of the introduction one-shots that are printed. Fair enough. 5 players show up really interested, including Max. Max is among the 3 players that are familiar with Vampire the Masquerade and is the most enthusiastic of them. Everyone seems ready for a good time. Before playing, I spent a few minutes recapping how the game works, establishing ground rules and limits. VTM can be a pretty nasty game involving violence, manipulation, monstrosity, etc. The story doesn't go into many horrible stuff, but I still warn that they can tap out at any point. I think I used a sheet of paper they could put their hands onto to skip a scene or something like that. Great. Okay, so that sounds like, you know, red card, yellow card. That's great. That's wonderful. I use a very similar system. Max is the only one asking a question here. He doesn't like to see Nazi portrayed in the game, even if it is to beat them up. Fair enough, no Nazis in the scenario anyways, but I appreciate his willingness to share. One thing I do share with them is my stance on torture in the game. If they use it, I won't let them describe in detail what they do, because I don't want that at my table. And they should know that I'll react realistically to it. Which means it's mostly useless because some people are just going to say whatever the characters want to hear just to make it stop. Why do I say that? I've played with enough players now to realize how normalized torture is for them. I hate that, so I want to make it clear. As you can imagine, it does get relevant later. He has a point, by the way, or they have a point, by the way. Yeah, torture doesn't work. Doesn't. No one's going to either A, they're not going to help you because why would they want to help you if you're hurting them? Or B, they're going to help you and say whatever you want, whatever they want, truthful or not, just because they want it to stop. And then if they aren't hiding anything, then, well, yikes. They select their character. Max chooses a guy that was a drug dealer before being turned into a vampire. And he asked me if he can still have some amount of drugs on him to deal and stuff. There's a character in the scenario that can be bribed with drugs, so I'm actually interested to see where he's going with it. That seems logical, so I say yes. Oh boy. Fast forward to the first scene. The scenario is an investigation into weird murders. They investigate the crime scene and get most, if not all, the clues they could. The murderer is a serial killer coming back after 40 years of inactivity, and he started drinking his victim's blood. There's inconsistencies between the old murders and the new ones. There is no sign of forced entry, etc. They talk to a cop that explained that there is no link between the victims, except they lived in the same area. Pretty classic for a serial killer. Let's scroll down a little bit. And that's where the issue starts. They have clues leading to different stuff. The previous investigation, 40 years earlier, vampire politics, and I think another lead. But my players, and Max, focus on the victim for some reason.
Can we access the victim's schedule?
Yeah, you managed to access his computer, so yeah.
Anything on the night of the murder?
No, nothing planned.
The previous one? Did he meet friends?
Huh. No, he was working.
Well, when was the last time he saw some friends? Who was it?
Now, you probably guessed by that exchange that 1, I had no plans for them investigating the friends of the victim. 2, I was trying to make the players understand that subtly. That was an obvious mistake. I should have been immediately clear that there was nothing to gain from pursuing this path. I thought I'd learned to say no to my players, but I kind of panicked. Yeah, as much fun as it is to try and be like, no, let them explore, don't tell them no. Because I've actually had some DMs who just go like, I don't like when a DM just goes straight up like, nothing will happen if you do this, move on. I don't like that as much, but like, let them get a little bit involved in it, and then give them that sort of like story beat of like, as you reach the bottom of their email list, you realize this is the end of the path you can go down on this way. And if they still don't get it, be like, hey guys, by the way, just so you know, like, I don't want you to waste your time. This actually won't go anywhere. So you might want to look in a different direction. And there you go. Easy enough to do. You have a 3-step process. Sounds like this person didn't go with that 3rd step. So it's all right. Max then explained that he had a plan to get information from the last friend who saw the victim. He got most of the group on his side as I was struggling to figure out a way to get myself out of this. I figured, all right, an interaction with a simple human could be a way for them to get themselves, for them to try themselves at role playing, some social roles with low stakes. I'll find something useful he can tell them, and that will be fine. I was very confident in my improv skills. I found an info the guy could share that would point my players to the place the victim knew and where the killer found him. Excellent, or so I thought. What followed was a good hour of one of the most convoluted sequences of planning I experienced in a game. I am so used to this one. They contacted the friend, managed to convince him to meet with one of them, started asking questions about the victim without telling him that he had died. The player meeting him was new at role-playing, but he did roll well, so they ended up getting the information pretty early. Excellent. We can go investigate the rest of the leads, right? Right? You're pretty sure he doesn't know anything more about the victim. Nothing useful. Thank you. There you go. There's it's a little bit of a, in between step 2 to 3, but it's mainly step 2 of my move them along. Max,
I'm not convinced. Bring him to me.
Again, I should have just said no at this point. Yep, you skipped part 3. I should have said no at this point, but it happened very quickly and I panicked. Max wanted to slip drugs into the guy's drink. I don't remember what it was, but something like LSD or similar, to lower the dude's inhibitions. Sure, he rolled, he did it, the guy told the same story. Max.
Okay, so I get him into a private room with the gang, -1 who's on lookout.
Sure. Max.
I use my vampiric strength to strap him to a chair.
Me. Sure, he's a simple human, he can't do much. Then Max started to describe a method of torture, something about nails or fingers, I don't remember. Yeah, I can't do nails, can't do nails, can't do nails. Ugh. I stopped him immediately, reminding him what I said. Max, right, sorry. Does he answer my questions? Yes. Again, same story. What does he say exactly? I'm very confused. At this point, 2 of the other players seem to have caught on the fact that they were losing time torturing a random guy for nothing. I described him begging, crying, and telling the same thing over and over again. At this point, I was even willing to give them more info because they had lost so much time already, but I couldn't find anything this guy would reasonably know. Max started to ask the other players if they had any more ideas of questions and tortures. I don't like... Okay, quick side note. I don't like torture in D&D. I already have a problem with killing in D&D, if I'm being completely honest with you here. I don't know what it is. There's something weird about the hypocrisy of, like, some of the limitations we put into games, which is obvious, right? Very real, right? No SA, obviously. You know, nothing, no SA or anything along that line. No torture is what some DMs will do as well. Me mostly included. I'll have, like, occasional allowances, but very, very little. I don't like it. But then we just kill willy-nilly, and it's like, that's a little bit weird. I guess because there's a canonized afterlife, then it's okay, but, like, I don't know, it's odd. But yeah, torture is... Finally, another player took the lead, freed the poor guy, and pointed out another lead they could follow. Max was visibly frustrated that his method didn't get him anything. At this point, there was less than 2 hours left for a 4-hour session. We ended up speed running it and managed to actually reach the end, mainly because I made sure some NPC went to the group directly for some clues, but also thanks to the other player that took the lead. We love that player. We love that one player that just fixes your problems and goes, oh, thank God you didn't have to work for me. Thank you. She had amazing luck at the game, rolling critical success after critical success, even with very little dice. Max was more silent, which gave the other players some time to shine. In the end, the group seemed to enjoy the game. 4 out of 5 of the players asked me to contact them if I started a campaign, among them Max. I asked for feedback, and Max is the only one who to give some negative, which I welcomed because I wanted to improve the scenario. He told me that the characters were not made equal, and that the character out of the other player was more involved with the scenario than his. I'd given each character 2 contracts, 1 human and 1 vampire, that they could use during the game to get help and or information. He used his to get the name of the bar to trap his victim. Max also said he was willing to play a campaign, but only if it was full roleplay. No talk outside of game, candles and dark ambience, stuff like that. Ambiance. There we go. I didn't contact him for a campaign. Thank you. The other 3 I did, but I had to keep probing them for time slots where everyone was available, and I couldn't be bothered with them after a month. That sucks. You know, the death of every campaign. Not my worst experience at the table, but definitely one of those times I thought back after the fact. Should have been more assertive as a DM. I should know how to direct my players when the time is limited and they're running towards a ravine. I did make some changes in the scenario to account for players focusing on the victim's personal history, just in case. I've run it a few more times with different players, and they all seem to enjoy it a lot. None of them went to the torture someone, so there's that. Max didn't seem like too bad a guy, but he clearly had an idea in mind and got angry when it didn't pan out like he wanted to. I do think that if I was even more inexperienced, that could have turned out really bad though, because he seemed really eager to detail his torture methods. Yeah. Like I said, torture's not my thing. Not a fan of it. I don't really enjoy when people are like, but it's D&D. We can torture all we want. Not a fan. Just not my cup of tea. One of my favorite pieces of torture that I will allow is a musical torture, right? If the bard wants to be like, I'm going to play the circus theme for 10 hours straight. It's like, okay, yeah, they're going to give up some information about that. That's funny as all hell. But legitimate torture? Nah. I also, I have a thing when it comes to, surgical stuff. So, when he mentioned nails, I immediately knew what he was talking about, and I can't... That really just makes me really queasy. Not a fan. Weirdly enough, though, for some reason, when people describe, they're like, how do you want to do this? you know, like the sword enters in through their lower thigh and I cleave them in twain. You can see their organs splitting through and pouring out as the sword cuts through them. That's awesome. That's fine. I love that. You know, it's a little dark, but let's go for it, right? You're showing your big moment, or you can show a dark aspect of it. But there's something about it being like a brutality that makes it less intimate, and I don't know what that is. But obviously, you know, always be open with your players and your DM about if that makes you uncomfortable, or if they tell you that it makes you uncomfortable, then you adjust, obviously. But no, this guy, I mean, the OP was right. Not the worst of the stories we've ever read here. It really just became one of those, like, person was kind of focusing a little too heavy, and he really did have it perfect, which was they had an idea in their head and they really just couldn't shake that idea. And I think that's really what it ended up becoming, was just not being able to let go of, I'm going to torture and get information and be the hero. It doesn't quite work that way, unfortunately. Focus a little too hard, and you know, it can feel kind of disappointing, especially if you waste so much time doing so. You want some result and you don't want it to be like, oh God, we're walking away with like one question answered. That may have also been why he tried to double down. Still not good, but glad it didn't go worse, right? That said, OP did my job for me. Laid out a lot of the things that they learned, which is fantastic. We love that. RPG horror stories, in my opinion, I don't like the drama of them necessarily, but I do love learning something from them. You can't learn something from everything other than the repeated lesson of no D&D is better than bad D&D. Leave games that when you feel unsafe or unwanted, etc., right? Though those are like pretty standard, but this one, he laid it all out. OP, sounds like you're running a great game. I'm really happy that they are at least like getting involved in a local game store as well, which is fantastic. I mostly play online, and that kind of sucks. I kind of wish I went to my local game store more, but I'm a little introverted despite all this. I think that's actually where we're going to go ahead and call it. A nice lighthearted story at the end to offset the awfulness of the last one. I hope you all enjoy. Let me know if you want to see more of these. I will see you all later. Everybody have a fantastic night. Drink water, get some proper sleep, take care of yourself. I love you all. Have a great night.